Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing for Thursday, the 22nd of June. I'm Derek Clark, and I'm joined by a full team this morning. First of all, Euan Robertson. How are we doing, Euan?
Yeah, very well, thank you.
Stevie Clifford also joins us. Is this the second time this week, Stevie, when we're on? I think it was Monday, was it, when I was in Norway, but good to have you back on.
Yeah, second time, Derek. I was supposed to be on yesterday, but yesterday turned into a bit of a mission. Derek had to get an emergency phone call on Tuesday afternoon because I got roped into chaperoning my school's day trip out. And, I can barely handle my two kids, Derek. So, a whole school worth was certainly a challenge. And then I had the dentist, and then I had to go and meet the lads last night for the fan engagement forum. So, yesterday was an extremely long and stressful day. So I'm glad to be back on this morning and have a bit of a quieter day ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Where did you go on the school trip, Stevie?
It's called Finlayston Country Park. It's on the way to Greenock. So it was about 45 minutes on the bus with 50 little kids screaming and shouting and all that. And it was just honestly, honest to goodness. So it was stressful, mate. Honestly, I can't handle my own two. Never mind, hundreds of others. So yeah, it was a fun day. That's for sure.
Yeah. I'm sure it was. Right, before we talk all things Rangers, because we're going to talk about the fan engagement event that took place at New Edmonton House last night. Lots of interesting points to discuss. Before we do that, though, quick word for our podcast sponsors, Seneca Hair Restoration, the top guys in the hair transplant biz, as you all know by now. If you're looking to restore some lost self-confidence, if you're looking for a hair transplant, then give these guys a call. All their transplants are carried out by doctors, and they have won multiple awards as well. So these are the best people to speak to if you're looking to restore some lost self-confidence. And as ever, the all-important links are in the description box. Right, let's talk Rangers, gents. You both were at the fan engagement event last night. I heard the cuisine was pretty good, Euan.
So I was sneezing there, so I put my mic on mute. I can't believe I'm getting stick for the cuisine. It was another member of the Rangers review team. It was
a few pies were had. I'm hearing.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw Johnny under the bus here and say he had far more to eat than me. But I mean, the food, in all seriousness, the food was actually excellent. There was some chicken skewers, and I did have 2 or 3 of them. I won't lie, but yeah, no, it was a great setup in general. That's the first time I've been to Edmonton House, so I had a wee look around after the meeting. It's very impressive.
Yeah, it certainly is. Right, let's talk about the event. Stevie, I think, what was the big talking points for you? We all talk about the Ibrox expansion plans, which I thought was very interesting indeed in terms of expanding the capacity and the feasibility around that, and taking out the screens, which has long been talked about ever since I was a young lad. Something that's been discussed widely for some time now, but was interested to hear the sort of intricate details, how that could be carried out. What were the big takeaways from the event for you?
First of all, it's probably best to describe who was there from Rangers to give everybody an idea that's maybe not caught up on it. So we had James Bisgrove, CEO, Greg Marshall, Head of Fan Engagement and SLO, David Milburn, Customer Service Manager, Natalie Nairn, Head of Retail and Events, Robert Boyle, Head of Digital and Content, John McFarlane, Facilities Manager, John Spears, Disabled Access Officer, Josh Hollywood, Head of Corporate, and Nick Thompson, who hosted, it was Head of Comms. So it was, basically all the heads of departments. I think the major takeaways, aside of the stadium's, I think, what everybody's going to talk about, and we should maybe expand and discuss that in a minute. But the main key points, I think, sports bar to open in January, everything going well, and the plans are well underway for that. They're working with Levy to kind of do a lot of work with that. So there's going to be that coming. That was the first one. Gift store will open next month at the same time in the museum. You'll go through that and then into the museum. It's on schedule to open at the end of July. It'll be a wee bit on the museum. It'll be 9 zones. and they'll have all explaining different periods of our history. It doesn't start at the beginning and then end, where we are, because they'll be constantly being out of date and stuff like that. So it's going to be different themes. They'll also have a bit at the end of it where it's an open space. So if things are happening or if we win something, they can update it and go on from there. Fan engagement strategy, first in Scotland to create such a strategy, a real desire to have a sort of closeness with the support. That was another one. And Ibrox Stadium to be the most accessible across the UK for disabled supporters, along with the work on the on the media access at the club. There's going to be new media rooms and stuff like that, taken up to UEFA required levels, not only for disabled access, but also for the media. Is interesting because these are the things that are holding Rangers back on not being able to host the European final. So I wonder if this is in our thinking further along. That was something I thought about last night. But those were the key points, I think. Season ticket renewal rate, 99%, 10,000 people on the waiting list through MyJers and stuff. So there was a lot of key kind of points. Those were the big bullet points from the intros, and how it was, Derek, and how it started was basically all the hosts or all the heads of department kind of explained who they were and spoke for a wee bit, and then they had some questions that were sent in and submitted, so pre-submitted questions, which they answered and kind of explained, and then it was an open floor and anything went. So it was a really good event, and obviously I think Euan would agree that the stadium announcements was the big most likely the big factor, I think, for most of us who were there last night. Is something we've long kind of wanted to hear the club's views on it. So that was definitely the takeaway last night, I think.
Yeah, interesting. And I think, Euan, these events, I mean, it's the first of a number of fan engagement events that are planned. I think a lot of supporters, that was one of the gripes you could say towards the old board, if you like, the communication levels weren't what they wanted them to be. But I think last night's event goes a long way in alleviating those gripes. I think we want transparency. That's what you hear that a lot of supporters want with the board and wanting to hear what's going on behind the scenes. Did you feel that last night? Certainly from a lot of reviews I'm hearing, the supporters felt it was a well worthwhile event.
I think that's the key word there, isn't it? It's transparency and being more open and engaging with the fan base. I think that's certainly what it was. Given the supporters who were in attendance last night the opportunity to put their questions to senior figures at the club is, I think it's really positive. Obviously any football club in the world, the most important people are the fans. So to make them feel more included in processes and give them up to date and detailed information on some big topics I think it's really important. And like you said, it's the first of many of these, and it won't just be these kind of fan engagement nights. There'll be other initiatives and processes as well to make the fans feel more part of what's going on in terms of decision making.
Yeah.
I think the thing is, sorry, just to say on that, you and Derek, I think the thing is as well, like as a fan base, if you'd asked most of us at the turn of the year how we felt, there would have been a real feedback that we are maybe customers, and that's the way we were getting treated. There was no communication from the board whatsoever, no communication from our managing director who, fundamentally runs the club. And I think a lot of us felt that there was a real disconnect. Now, Euan said that, another real one, Euan said obviously about wanting that kind of involvement with the fans. I think that's key. But another one as well is accountability. We don't expect people to run the club and not make mistakes and things like that. James Bisgrove sat on the stage last night and he spoke about NFTs on the back of the shirt. He spoke about Champions League prices last season. He said about the NFTs, he said they were a brilliant deal for the club, really financially well done, but it was a wrong decision because supporters then had things on the back of the shirts that went out of date and it caused a lot of issues. And he sat and he said, I'm really sorry about that. We made a mistake. Champions League prices He went on last week. He said last year that, in hindsight, as a board, we let the fans down and we got that wrong and we priced it wrongly and we went about it wrongly. For that, we apologise. He didn't go into the Sydney Cup thing. He's been held accountable for that before, and he's taken responsibility. And obviously, that's now a legal matter which he can't kind of press on. I don't want Rangers Football Club to be in a position where they don't take risk or they don't try and do what's best for them financially and things like that. But if a mistake's made, it would be nice if we could have them come out. And that's what we've always asked. Now, last night he did do that. And I think when somebody has the presence of mind to sit in front of the audience and hold their hands up and say, look, we made a mistake there, I take responsibility for that, we should credit it for them, because that's all we ask for, a wee bit of accountability, a wee bit of involvement, so that it breaks down the barrier where we think we're getting treated as customers. So I fully back what Euan said, but also to add that in, I think that's really important. I think there's been a massive, massive sea change in attitude. Certainly since James and Bisgrove and John Bennett kind of took charge. I think there's been a massive, massive change. The people that they're bringing in and have brought in heads of department positions are really engaging. They're all Rangers fans. They're all really positive. They all want the best for the club. Now, being Rangers fans isn't a prerequisite that you have to be employed by the club. Sometimes, it doesn't need to be that way. But my point being is they all, want what's best for the club. They're all pushing and striving. So I think that's interesting. I really want to say that as well, because I've been really critical, Derek, as you know, the last 18 months or so, the way the board have kind of handled certain things. The lack of communication, I think, is key in all that, and accountability, and just saying, look, we made a mistake. I think that's all we want. If you give Rangers fans a vision and a plan, we'll follow it and we'll stick by the club. So I think that's key. And given that we've sat here for a very long time, the last 18, 20 months, and I've had a lot to say, I think it's good to be able to point out the other way and give fans a feeling of how it is for us that are a wee bit closer and kind of do the journalism side of it, and how it is now compared to what it was like 6 months ago.
Yeah, let's get to a few of the comments that are coming in. Ian Thompson says, as a season ticket holder of more decades, and I'd like to mention that it's refreshing seeing James Bisgrove move the dial. Yeah, certainly a lot of encouraging words for James coming in. Xander says, morning, gents. Thought the board spoke really well yesterday. Hopefully more to come heading into next season. And a point here, of course, let's talk about first of all, Martin says, was the fan engagement recorded? Will a video of the meeting be released by the club? Was that being recorded yesterday, gents? Were you aware of that?
I'm not. So my understanding, Stevie, might be different. I don't think the full video will be put up.
Yeah.
There might be clips of certain segments put up. There's obviously reasons for that, as you might have seen what happened last night. But I don't think the full thing will get put up. I don't know if Stevie's in agreement with that. I don't know if he knows any more.
No, I'm the same. We did ask that question. It was filmed, but I think for people's kind of privacy and some of the questions, etc., we don't want to be in a situation where you get it on forums and things, and somebody asks something that's really personal to them, and then it spirals out of control. So this was supposed to be a closed door kind of private event for those selected. So we were allowed to cover it, obviously, which I did on the blog, and which we did obviously here, and we are now. But it wasn't allowed to be live tweeted or anything. So I think it was filmed, and notes were taken. So I think the club do plan to release, like Euan said, some clips and some bits from it. But overall, I don't think you'll be able to watch like a live sort of, or not a live, but a presentation for 2 hours or whatever on it. I don't think that'll happen.
Yeah, okay. Graham Morrison raises a point just on the stadium expansion. Lads, putting seats in the corners is a no-brainer. The seats would pay for themselves regarding season tickets. Give us more of a chance of hosting a Euro tournament game or a UEFA final. Okay, this was the big news. Like you said, Stevie, they're looking at the feasibility of increasing the capacity at Ibrox. It's something I think supporters would be keen on. I think filling in the corners where the screens are is something that we've longed for some time. I've seen the the price, the cost that would cost the club. There's different ways they can do it. They can fill the complete corners, which would be 3,000 to 4,000 each corner by taking away the screens. That would come in around £25 million. But a partial refill would add 1,300 each corner. Would be around £3 to £4 million for each side. What did you make of that, first of all, Steve? I think lowering the pitch was also something that they were considering. I've got to be honest, I think it's quite exciting. The prospect of expanding Ibrox, I think it's something that the club should certainly seriously be looking at in terms of bringing in more revenue. There will be a big outlay for the building work and the construction, but I think long-term benefits are there for all to see.
Yeah, so this is obviously the major talking point of last night. There was a bit of confusion surrounding what was said as well. I think we all interpreted it differently. The club, to be fair to them, James, very quickly on the phone to kind of explain. I think I wasn't the only one, certainly from reports and certainly how Euan and I and even Johnny took it when we were sitting there. So I'll kind of explain how it was put. James obviously began to discuss the possibility of stadium expansion. That was one of the big questions from the supporters. So it was a sent in, pre-submitted. So the first thing they spoke about was the possibility of adding 1,300 seats into each corner, and he mentioned that maybe go above or below the screens. So I need to sort of clarify where exactly they would go, but that would add on 1,300 in each corner to a cost of £4 or £5 million. But the way it was put across, he then went on in the same breath to talk about if he took away the screens, complete refurbished corners, 3,000 to 4,000 each corner would be that. And then he said about the 3 and 4 million. So that's where the confusion picked up and from us. He then went on to speak about lowering the pitch. He said take it down 6 levels and adding in right round, 6 new rows, basically 6 levels right round. A cost of 20 to 25 million. But that is very difficult because not only does it, you have to dig down, you're talking about your undersoil heating, you're talking about your pitch, you're talking about lighting issues because the floodlights and all that are set for where we currently are. So if you move it down and everything else, then everything changes basically from where we are, the tunnel level, the whole works, everything changes. So that's a big job. That's not possible to do in one summer. So you would potentially be looking at Rangers playing away for a very long time, away from the club, and that rolls on. So I think, judging by what was said last night, I don't know if Euan agrees, but I think that's a bit of a non-starter, or certainly not their preferable choice. What was then clarified from the club is to fill both corners and to add that 3,000-4,000 in to take away. Basically, you would continue the tiers right round the way it is the now. Maybe a slightly like Murrayfield, kind of take the screens out. That kind of shape, that kind of style, that would give you 3,000-4,000 each corner, additional maybe 8,000 seats. That would cost anywhere between 25 to 30 million pounds. The difference, though, that the club seem to be saying is that what we've had previously is, well, that's just not possible and we're not going to do that and we're not even going to look at it. They're now doing feasibility studies. They're having architects draw it out. They're doing all the stuff to look at all the options. And the attitude seems to be from the investors in the boardroom, not that we can't do it. It's right, okay, how can we do it? When are we doing it? And how much is this going to cost us? So a lot of people are kind of doing, it's now went to the point where it's basic kind of math where we're all getting the pens and papers out and saying, well, we sell 8,000 season tickets, it'll get back 5-6 years, etc. I'm not sure it's quite that straight, that forward, because we obviously would need to fund it up front. How does it affect your financial fair play? Would we be able to offset? So there's a lot of questions, I think, to do around that. But the positive for me certainly is that at least they're looking at it. At least they're doing these studies. At least they're getting the drawings done. At least all that's there. They seem to be showing a real appetite to at least explore it. And we'll come to maybe safe standing, singing sections and things in a minute. But I think there's definitely a change in attitude towards the possibility, which I think is really positive.
Yeah. Very interesting indeed, Euan. Are you a fan? Would you like to see Ibrox expanded? I think in terms, you look across the team across the city, they do have a bigger stadium that brings in more revenue as a result. I think it's a no-brainer for me. Now, I understand there's a lot of comments coming in saying we can't afford 25 to 30 million, and that's understandable, but there has to be a way, and it's interesting, and it's I think it's exciting. The club are looking at ways of expanding the ground because, I mean, they will have to look at that realistically. To compete at the highest level, I think, is to try and expand Ibrox. I think they would be able to fill it as well if you're hitting 60,000 capacity. People that are on waiting lists that are desperate to go to Ibrox and can't normally go. I don't think it would be an issue in terms of filling the ground. But in terms of the fans that were there last night, was there an overwhelming sense of this is something that they should pursue, they should look at doing?
Yeah, well, in terms of filling the 6,000 to 8,000 seats, I think James mentioned last night there's 10,000 people or more than that on the waiting list. So there you go, that's that filled straight away. That's that question answered. It's going to come down to finances, isn't it? Obviously, adding 6,000 to 8,000 seats is going to bring in a lot of money in the long term. The match day revenue comes up, and it obviously closes the gap in terms of match day revenue to Rangers' rivals. It's going to come down to cost, isn't it? Like most things in life, I think Stevie made a good point. Lowering the pitch, I don't think it's a realistic option at all. So you've got the problem of not just kind of all the technicalities of doing that, but you've got where Rangers play for a season. You'd imagine that it would take a long time to get it done. Where would they play? At Hampden? You've got to be realistic.
Most likely, yeah.
And then obviously, there's obviously problems with that as well. So I don't think that's an option. So I think the best options are obviously filling the corners. 20 to 25 million is a lot of money. I'm no financial expert, but there's probably ways that can be raised. But it's very much not like a transfer where you can pay over installments and stuff like that. So I mean, I don't know the finances involved, so it's difficult for me to come and say that how it can be done. But I mean, if it's realistic and the finances are there and it makes financial sense, and long term it would pay off. Maybe not over the kind of 5-6 years, but certainly over the decade, 2 decades, it would bring in a lot more money than it would cost. But it's all about upfront cost, really.
Yeah, now's a good time to remind you all, folks, about our member scheme. Thank you to Day in a Life, who has reminded me, remember, come a member, £2.99 is great, well worth the money. Thank you very much, buddy. Yes, we have launched the membership scheme on our YouTube channel, where you'll get 3 to 5 extra videos per week, priority comments as well, and you can watch the morning briefing ad-free. There are a lot of comments you see, people not happy with the amount of ads if you're watching us on the morning. If you're watching us and as a member, then you will get that ad-free. So now is the time to sign up. Lots of exciting videos. I'll be doing a members video with Chris Jack a little later on today, but we'll get a transfer update. I can see loads of comments coming in with regards to the transfers that the Rangers have carried out already and potential transfers as well. We'll discuss that a little bit more in detail shortly. But just going back to that event yesterday, Stevie, James Bisgrove, another big takeaway was the Old Firm allocation, of course. He did mention this previously, but he says the club have got no intention of giving the Broomloan stand back to Celtic for away games. I think he did speak before about a potential dialogue with Celtic and about having, was it the European allocation, 800 seats over in the corner? Did they expand in that in any way, shape or form?
Not really, no. It was a repeat basically of what we already know, which was that, likely this season, they've not had discussions yet, but likely this season it'll be the smaller allocation. Going forward, could there be a potential to move it up slightly? Yes, there could be, but they won't be getting the Broomloan back. He doesn't envisage, I think his exact words where he doesn't envisage a situation in the future where they'll get the whole of the Broomloan back. So that is what it is. obviously there's a section of support that are all for that. It was greeted basically by loud kind of applause and agreement last night. But if you go to the rank and file, I think they would disagree completely. So it's one that's going to split opinion. I'm going to do the diplomatic thing and swerve this completely. And but there was more, Derek, actually last night, come to think of it, on the appointments. One of the big takeaways was that they've just started the sporting director recruitment. Now, this is interesting in terminology. They're no longer calling it director of football. It's sporting director, which is different. Yeah. So I think we're moving towards that as being the replacement for Ross Wilson. That has now started, and they're moving on with that. They are extremely close to appointing a replacement for Craig Mulholland as director of the academy. So that's going to happen very shortly. And they have a new women's manager in place waiting for the announcement. So that is really interesting. He says that all of these could happen in the next 4 to 5 weeks. So that was one of the big takeaways. And I think he also mentioned a finance director has been close to being an appointment as well. So these positions we spoke about on Monday and we've spoken about previously, they are close to filling. So it's a case really of watch this space, and we'll wait for news on that one. So that was an interesting kind of takeaway, as well as the safe standing and singing section kind of point of view. I think those were the other kind of worthwhile discussion points.
Yeah, as Stevie said there, Euan, safe standing in the singing section. Of course, we're going to see it in operation at the Alan McGregor testimonial next month when Newcastle come to town. Are you all for that?
I think anything that can be done to enhance and improve the match, the atmosphere, should be explored. And I think that's what Rangers are doing, isn't it? They're looking at the best areas for safe standing. There's obviously going to be kickback from some fans that might be displaced. But if you look at most clubs, big clubs in Europe, they are trying to do this. I just think Manchester United last season kind of introduced one, and other clubs are looking where's the best area in the stadium to do it. I don't think it's cut and dry where that's going to be at the moment, but you've certainly got to explore it and see the impact it has, and to do that in friendly games seems like the logical and sensible thing to do.
Yeah, Ian Thompson raises a point just on the allocation. I've got to say that I'm happy to keep Celtic's allocation at a minimum. I've got to say I've enjoyed the games with it being all Rangers fans. Very interesting takeaways from that fan engagement event last night, folks. Another thing Stevie I thought was interesting, a memorial to honour the Ibrox disaster victims is what is underway. Was there any words on what that may look like or where it may be?
Well, John Spears answered that question. John explained that they're currently looking at the whole of the footprint of the stadium area. And I'll follow this up with another point in a wee second. But on that, he said that they're looking at more of a kind of place where the disaster actually happened, maybe by the stairs, etc. So there is a possibility that a new memorial could go in there. There was talk about it, but they have ring fenced the funds for that. And James Bisgrove then added onto it that the directors and all the staff would put not a promise as such, but they are committed to making sure that happens. So it will happen. Another one they updated us on was Walter Smith, the commission of Walter Smith statue. As we spoke about the other day, Derek, and as I said online, that's now been commissioned. The work has now started. They're working really closely with the Smith family to make sure that it's not only just doing the statue, but they have to what pose do you want? What do you want Walter's face to be like? Do you want him to be smiling? Do you want it to be Walter's face at the side of the pitch, etc.? So what do we want? So they've discussed that in full, and the family and the club are really happy with how it's going. So they make it in clay first, and then they kind of go from there. So it's the first viewings and the first kind of makings of it are all underway. So we update on that. There was no update on where it would be or things like that. That'll come.
Yeah.
But another thing they spoke about was the ongoing works. John McFarlane spoke about this, not our Johnny McFarlane, but John McFarlane of the club spoke about this. The money has been budgeted and given to him this year for improvements in the stadium. So he spoke a lot about that. You're doing a lot of lift work. They're doing a lot, around the stadium and things like that, kiosk work. But James then interjected and said it's important that the fans know that it's not all showy and kind of, the headline, let's do the safe standing, let's do the expansion. It's not all showy stuff. They realise that the toilets need urgent work. They know that, right? That's priority. So they know that. They know the kiosks need upgraded. They're looking at lots of things to do, even getting things like the machines in where you can go and get your snacks and all that from and stuff like that. So they're getting all them in. And they understand the urgent need for that. They also understand they're looking at things like tarmacking around the stadium. We spoke about that before, and people have highlighted that before. So can we make the footprint better, and can we do all that? So I think it's important to highlight that. The club aren't just doing the headline stuff, like how to get people on side, a few sound bites. They're actually trying to do the nitty-gritty. They're actually working from it, and there's a significant millions of pounds have been allocated to John to make sure the stadium is getting up to date. And that's something that I'll follow up with. Already spoken to a number of people last night, heads of department, Derek, and we're going to be speaking to them in the coming weeks and months, and we'll get a real update. And this fan engagement and this kind of forward facing from the club will continue. So we'll follow that up. We'll get more updates and we'll find out more. But I think for it important to know that the club are at least recognising what the fans are saying about the stadium, and it's not just the headline grabbing ones that they're trying to do. It's the nitty gritty, if you like, of people's complaints and the real basic stuff that they're looking to massively upgrade also.
Yeah, it's good to hear. Hugster says 2 Johnny McFarlanes. There's only 2 Johnny McFarlanes. Yeah, there's absolutely not 2 Johnny McFarlanes, but we all like a bit of comedy on the show in the morning. Gordon Herriot is says good afternoon from sunny Thailand. Let us know if you're going to the ORSA convention, Gordon. Looking forward to heading out there in just under a fortnight's time. And I have been told, incidentally, just off the back of that, they are raffling off a ticket for an all expenses paid trip out there in all the events. I'm sure that I think there's a few tickets left. Just go on to BangkokBearsRSC.com or on their social media channels, and you can find out how to enter for that one. Really, it's going to be a cracking prize. Lots of bona fide Rangers legends heading out there, so looking forward to that. Just on McGregor's testimonial, John Alexander says, got my ferry booked and my tickets bought for the Newcastle game. Love to hear that. There will be Bears travelling from far and wide to give Alan McGregor that send-off. In terms of the transfer front, folks, well, as I mentioned earlier on, I'll be talking to Chris Jack in detail about the latest in terms of comings and goings. I seen just last night, of course, Jose Cifuentes. We're just touching on him, Euan, before we wrap up. It looks like a move is edging closer. We've discussed this for some time. I think Rangers, of course, in negotiations with LAFC about the Ecuadorian midfielder heading over to Ibrox. What's your feeling on that signing? Is that someone that you'd be excited to see pitch up at Ibrox?
Yeah, I don't think anything's really changed on that front. I mean, I've seen things last night, but it's been my understanding for some time that personal terms and all that aren't an issue.
Yeah,
it's just agreeing a fee with LAFC. So I mean, I think it's the start of, is it end of June, start of July that they can officially agree a pre-contract, because his contract ends in December. So I think you'll see movement on that within the next 10 days. 2 weeks. Stevie might know more than me, but I'd give that the time frame. And obviously, people have been checking flights and that this afternoon. I've seen that on Twitter. It's getting to that stage of the season, isn't it, where people are looking at private jets flying in from everywhere. But on Cifuentes, I mean, I don't think anything's really changed. Sometimes it's a case with transfers that there is literally no kind of movement for a while, and I think there's been an understanding there that personal terms won't be an issue. It's just about being a fee with the clubs, and you don't want to say that's a formality, because it's definitely not, and there could be interest from elsewhere, but I think it's just a case of a waiting game now in that one.
Yeah, until he's holding that scarf aloft, I think is what they say. But hopefully that one gets over the line over the course of the summer. Right, guys, I think that'll do us here Brilliant chat as ever. Big thanks to Stevie and to Euan, and a huge thanks to everyone for interacting with the show. As I mentioned, members will get that extra video later on this afternoon, where I'll sit down with Chris Jack to get an insight into the latest in terms of incomings and outgoings at Rangers. Thanks to everyone for watching and listening. We'll be back again tomorrow. Until then, enjoy the rest of your Thursday.